Okay. Dharia, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Please confirm if you can hear me. Dharia Singh.
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you. Hello?
Hi, Aryan.
Good evening, ma'am.
Hello?
I cannot hear any of you. Please say something. Aryan,
Ma'am,
turn, unmute yourself.
Ma'am. Ma'am. Could
hello,
you hear
ma'am.
us?
Ma'am, can you?
Okay, I got Avinav, I got Aryan. Okay, and Dharia Singh, can you hear me? Send me a message. Okay, good. Good evening, Sumukh.
Good evening, ma'am.
Are your all mics working? Just say something so that I can understand that you can.
Hello. Hello.
Okay.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear us, ma'am?
Hi, Sumukh. Can you hear me?
Ma'am, can you
Please
hear me,
confirm.
ma'am? Ma'am, I can hear you.
I cannot hear any of your. Are you all saying something? I am not able to hear any of you. Yeah. We are. I'm not able to hear any of you. Uh, just a minute. Let me check my mic. I think I am able to hear. If my. Okay. Can you all hear each other? Now it's working. I now just say something so I can see if I can hear you.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear
Okay,
us
okay.
now?
Yes,
Good
yes, I
evening,
can.
ma'am.
Good evening, all of you. Good evening. I think there was something in my headphone setting. Okay, let us begin.
Ma'am.
We were doing what were we doing?
Hello, ma'am.
Nationalism in India, right?
Ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes, yes. So,
can you hear me?
okay. So let's do a quick revision. So, what was nationalism in India? First of all, in the starting of the study, we understand what is nationalism. What is the definition of nationalism? So, anybody can tell me what is nationalism?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah, Sumuk.
Ma'am, can you once summarize resources and development chapter?
Resources and development. Okay, we will take that chapter in the next class. So
Okay,
after
ma'am.
we finish nationalism in India, we will do that. Okay, I cannot just take up any other chapter until I finish one. Fine.
Okay, ma'am.
Resources in India, you said, huh?
Ma'am, no, ma'am. Resources and development.
Resources and development. Yeah, okay, I'll do that. Okay, so let me give a quick revision of nationalism in India. So nationalism is an ideology, you can say, or a movement that promotes the interest of a particular nation, especially with the aim of gaining and maintaining the nation's sovereignty over its homeland. Okay, so how did nationalism spread in India? Okay, so the first question, why the growth of nationalism in the colonies linked to the anti-colonial movement? Like I told you, the Britishers ruled us over 200 years, right? And the British ruled us about and before that they were the Mughals. So what was the difference between the Mughal rule and the British rule was that we during the British rule we were a colony. Okay, we were colonized. Colonized means our resources were drained by the British. Okay, so the question arises, why the growth of the nationalism in the colonies is linked to the anti-colonial movement. First of all, the people begin to discovering their unity in the process of their struggle with the colonialism, because all classes of people and all over India, everybody were facing problem, we're facing a struggle with the British government, and the sense of being oppressed under this colonial government provided a shared bond. See, I am suffering, you are also suffering, that person is also suffering. So that suffering made all the Indians bond among themselves. Okay, now each class felt the effects of colonialism differently. Okay, the businessmen also felt the effects of colonialism. The poor peasants also felt, the farmers felt, the industrialists felt, all sorts of all classes of people experience the colonialism struggle. Okay, now what happened, and who united who spread the nationalism message? It came under it was the Congress that under the Mahatma Gandhi tried to forge these groups together into one movement. Okay, and this unity could not emerge without conflict. So this was the anti-colonial movement was the reason for nationalism in India. Now, first we talk about, as in the beginning of the chapter, we talk about First World War. Okay, so how the war, what was this? Although India had nothing to do with the war, India was pulled into the war. So what was it? So the war created a new political and economic situation. Okay, the war led to a huge increase in defense expenditure, which was financed by war loans and increase in the taxes. The British had increased taxes, custom duties were imposed. Okay, and income tax was introduced. Now, other than that, taxes and other than the taxes, there was forced recruitment into the army. Okay, and other to plus it all, The crops had failed and people faced huge shortage of food. And there was an epidemic that was influenza, and which led to a lot of people dying due to famine and epidemics. It was about 12 to 13 million people died. Okay. Okay, let me share your screen so that you people can get a better understanding. Okay, so First World War was during the time 1919. Car loans, like I told you, forced recruitment was there. Then came the idea of satyagraha. Now, what is the idea of satyagraha?
Non-violent and truth,
Yeah, it was. Huh?
nothing.
Okay, the idea of satyagraha, let me give you. It was the power of truth. Okay, and it was a need to search for truth. It suggested that if the cause was true and if the struggle was against injustice, then physical force was not necessary to fight the oppressor. Without seeking vengeance and or being aggressive, Satyagraha could win the battle through non-violence. Now, by this struggle, truth was bound to ultimately triumph. Mahatma Gandhi believed that this dharma of non-violence could unite all Indians. And Mahatma Gandhi believed that this dharma of non-violence could unite all Indians. Okay. So all of you are clear the idea of Satyagraha? Give me a message, yes, if you are not able to talk.
Yes, ma'am. It's clear.
Yeah, okay. So now when Mahatma Gandhi came to India, and what was the first? There was the first regional. There were three regional satyagrahas that he did. What was the first one? The first the first satyagraha, it was in 1917 in Kheda, Gujarat. Huh? Do you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Am I audible to you?
yeah, you're audible. So the first satyagraha was in Kheda, Gujarat. That was in 1917. It was for the supporters. Gandhiji did the satyagraha for the supporters of peasants who had, and this was the peasants against the British government. Now, what was in this? Someone tell me about the Kheda satyagraha. The first satyagraha, this was the first satyagraha that was in Kheda, Gujarat. Okay, it was the Gandhiji supported the peasants against the British government. Okay, they were, because they had failure. There was crop failure and there was a plague epidemic. The farmers were not able to pay the revenue, so they wanted relaxation in the revenue, and Gandhiji supported them in that. So this was also a success. The first one was Champaran Satyagraha, that was in 1917, and this was against the indigo plantation owners. So what was the problem in the indigo plantation? Wherever the indigo plantation was done, the land would go barren. So the soil would spoil. So people did not, and also the owners were paying very less, right? So they did not want to grow the indigo crop. Okay, so for the first satyagraha was the Champaran, Bihar, in which Gandhiji inspired the peasants to struggle against the oppressive plantation system. The second one was in Kheda, Gujarat. Okay, This was also against the revenue which the peasants had to pay. The third satyagraha was against Ahmedabad, Gujarat in 1918. Okay, this was again the cotton mill workers. They were paid very low wages, and the prices of good were increasing. So they wanted an increase in their wages. So this satyagraha was there. So can anybody can summarize all these satyagrahas?
Ma'am, Gandhiji started to support. Gandhi started this movement to support all his followers
Yeah,
against
all
the
the
Britishers.
this way
Started
the yeah. Tell me about the first
uh, it,
satyagraha.
it started in Kheda, Gujarat.
Sorry, it was in Champaran, Bihar, against the indigo plantation. The second was
Yeah, Indigo.
Kheda, Gujarat.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Champaran, Bihar. It
Uh-huh.
was against the indigo plantations.
Yeah.
Growing indigo would make the soil barren and the farmers were paid less.
Hmm.
So against these regulations, they made the protest against them.
Okay. The first one was Champaran in Bihar, second was Kheda, and third was which was the third one?
Third one
Anybody tell
was
me?
near Gujarat. I think.
Ahmedabad.
Cotton mill workers.
Was it Ahmedabad? Ahmedabad,
Ma'am,
Gujarat.
cotton mill workers, Ahmedabad.
Yeah, cotton mill workers. And that was in 1918. Went to Ahmedabad to organize Satyagraha movement of the cotton mill workers. Okay.
Which supported the cotton mill workers
Yes.
and they demanded for increase in wages and low working hours.
Good. Okay. Now these three regional satyagrahas was a success. Okay. So next comes the Rowlatt Act. Can anybody tell me about the Rowlatt Act? What was the Rowlatt Act? Okay, so
Ma'am,
the Rowlatt
Rowlatt
Act is,
Act was on 1919 and
yeah,
it was made by the Imperial Legislative Council
yeah.
and it was on April 6th where Gandhiji started that act.
What was this Rowlatt Act? Why were the Indians outraged by them, by it?
The
Okay, it
act
was passed
had been hurriedly passed by the Imperial Legislative.
Ma'am, it would suppress all political like
yeah, all the
demonstrations and
demonstrators, yeah. What was it?
like
Anybody would
protests
be jailed for 2 years without trial,
without.
yeah. Even if they are without even proving any charges against them, anybody could be jailed for 2 years without trial. Okay, without a court trial, they could. So what happened? So this was the reason the people were outraged, and what happened? Gandhiji announced the hartal. Okay, you can say the Rowlatt hartal. Okay. Okay, now the Rowlatt hartal. What happened in the hartal? There was a strike. Yeah, strike was there. Railway workshops and shops closed down. People were asked to not to go to the government jobs. Okay, the lines of communications were disrupted. Okay, so what happened? The British panicked and they thought the communication would get hampered. So they decided to clamp down on the nationalists. Okay, Now, what they did, the Britishers did, they picked up the leaders. Okay, now and they picked up the leaders from Amritsar. Gandhiji was banned from going to New Delhi, Delhi. And on 10th of April, the police of Amritsar opened fired on a peaceful procession. Okay, now as when they fired on the people, the matter turned into violence. Of course, nobody, when the people heard that their people had been shot off, people became outraged and they attacked on police stations and government buildings. So, because of this, martial law was imposed and General Dyer was given its command. And seeing all the violence, Gandhiji, what happened then? This was all before the Jallianwala Bagh incident. Then when was the Jallianwala Bagh? Anybody can give me a small note on Jallianwala Bagh? Aryan, say something.
There was a precision, ma'am, when they
First of all, give me the date of Jallianwala Bagh.
13 April, I think 1919.
13th April. Very good. And what had
1919.
happened on? Yeah. And what had happened on that day?
Ma'am, that time the soldiers, ma'am, there was a peaceful satyagraha. So, but however, to like what do you say? To
Yeah.
fight against it, General, the British Army, the British soldiers under the command of General Dyer fired at them, and
Yeah.
many were killed.
Many were killed. Good. Sumuk, can you give me? Tell me about the Jallianwala Bagh incident. I cannot hear you.
Ma'am, it was not only a protest, but also they have many
I cannot hear you.
many
There was all,
other gathered for the Baisakhi
yeah,
festival and fair.
So
So
Baisakhi
they were
people
means,
innocent.
died in.
yeah, people were there. People had people from the nearby villages had gathered over there to celebrate the festival of Baisakhi. They were not, they did not have any information about the martial law. Okay, other than this, there was a group that had collected to there was a people who were protesting against the martial law, Rowlatt Act. Okay, so General Dyer closed all the exits, and he opened fire on the people. So many people were killed. Okay, so why what he said, what did he have to say about this? Why he did this? He said he wanted to produce a moral effect and create to create in the minds of the satyagrahis to feel the feeling of terror and awe. Okay, so he did this, and the British government also awarded him a medal also for this. Okay, now how did the Indians act? How did the people act? Okay, as the news spread, the crowd took to the street. Okay, and they went on strike. Clashes were there between the police and the people. Government buildings were attacked, and what the British soldiers did, they responded with a very brutal repression. What they did, they humiliated the satyagrahis. Okay, they forced them to rub their noses on the ground. They made them crawl on the street and do salam, that is a salute, and to all the sahibs, and people were flogged. Flogged means they were whipped by a whip, and the villages were burned down also. Okay, sorry, bombed. And seeing all this violence, satyagraha was the Rowlatt satyagraha was called off by Gandhiji. Okay, so can you? So there is in this there was the main incident here is the Jallianwala Bagh. Okay. Jallianwala Bagh incident. Now you have to understand what was before, what happened before Jallianwala Bagh, and then the Jallianwala Bagh, and then what happened after the Jallianwala Bagh. Okay, all of you all understand? Okay, so there are three parts to it. Now, this was called off. Why was it called off? Because it had turned violent. Okay, now it was called off, but of course, Gandhiji did not relax down. He began to plan a wider movement. There should be a wider movement about this, and for this, first of all, the satyagraha that the hartal was done only in the town area. So the villagers were not aware of it. So now he wanted to spread his message to the villages also. Okay. Other than that, he wanted a more broad movement, and he did not only wanted the Hindus, and he also wanted the Muslims to together join hands. And so he decided to, how did he plan his plan to unite the uh, how did he plan to unite the Muslims? Anybody can say? Anybody knows?
Mhm.
Okay, so like I told you all, there was a World War One. Okay, and there was the World War One. Okay, now there was the Ottoman Empire was defeated in the World War One, and the leader of the Ottoman Empire was the Khalifa. Okay, he was a leader of the Muslims. Okay, now even the Muslims of India had with his support, and because the British had oppressed the Khalifa, so the Muslims of India also were against the British because of this, and because of this there was a Khalifa movement, sorry, Khilafat movement. Okay, and the Khilafat movement was started by the Muslim brothers, that was Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali. Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali brothers, they uh, they uh, they held a meeting with Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi asked them to support in their support so that they could fight. So the Swaraj of the Hindus, okay, and the Khilafat movement together, they were unified under the national movement. Okay, so the Khilafat movement, the Khalifa, okay, the younger generation, okay, we have done this. And together with the Khilafat movement and the Swaraj movement, the famous book of the Swaraj declared that the British rule was established. Okay, now together with the Hindus and the Muslims, the Gandhiji started the non-cooperation movement. So first of all, understand how the British came to India. The British came to India, they lured the kings of India, and the king began to cooperate with the British. Why? Because they thought that they will help us grow, they will help us rule over the farmers and the peasants and the poor people, and they are friends, right? So the kingdoms were began to cooperate with the British. Now, what would drive them away? The Gandhi believed that it would be the non-cooperation with the British that would make them run away. So he planned the non-cooperation movement. Okay. So let me tell you about the non-cooperation movement. I will give you notes. Okay, you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what was the Khilafat movement? There was the Khilafat issue was there. It was a harsh treaty that was, let us start with the non-cooperation. Okay. So the no-cooperation, the roadmap was proposed by Gandhiji and the launch of the movement was done. So what was the roadmap? Surrender of titles that the government awarded. They were titles like Malik, Sahib, and these titles were given by the British, and the people were they were very feeling very privileged by these titles. So the roadmap was of Gandhiji was you should surrender these titles. Okay. Now boycott of civil services. Nobody should work in the army, on police, courts, legislative councils, schools, and foreign goods, and to launch a civil disobedience movement. Okay. So the launch was of the non-cooperation movement was done at the Congress session in December 1920. December 1920. Okay, and it aimed at attaining Swaraj or self-rule. Okay. Now the non-cooperation movement finally began at 1921 January. And how was how did it affect differently in different places? First of all, let us talk about the movement of the Swaraj of the non-cooperation in the movement in town. So in the town, it was led by the middle class. Okay, the middle class were the students, teachers, headmasters, lawyers. Now the teachers, students stopped going to the government school. The teachers stopped going to the school. Okay, headmasters also cooperated. The lawyers they boycott. They stopped going to the courts. Okay, now even elections were boycotted. Okay, except the Justice Party of Madras was the only Justice Party of Madras who participated in the Legislative Council's election. So this was the only party. Okay, so they believe that we will get a seat, so we will be able to have a say into the government. That was their idea. But this was against the Gandhiji's what Gandhiji wanted. So what was the progress of this? The production because there was they were boycotting the foreign clothes. Okay, so because of that, handlooms began to flourish. Okay, now production of the Indian handlooms and textiles due to the boycott and the reduction of the import of foreign goods. But what happened? What was the end of this movement? The end was that because if there were no schools, okay, now if the students would not go to school, they didn't have another choice. There was no other school to go to. And if how long is the teachers or the lawyers not going to are going to sit at home, and so they needed jobs. Okay, and also because the foreign textile was cheaper, and the Indian handloom textile were costlier. So only the rich could do that. In the support of the government, they would not buy, but the poor, they had to, they didn't have jobs and they didn't have anything to do, so they were forced to buy the cheaper cloth. Okay, so eventually slowdown in the movement was due to the reasons of like khadi being more expensive and no alternative Indian institutions were there. Students had no other institution to go to, so people had no other jobs. Okay, if a lawyer would not go to the court, where would he go, right? So this was the end of because of this, people returned to their jobs and the movement ended in the town area. Now let's just talk about the non-cooperation movement in Awadh. I'll give you a small. Awadh is a little larger one. So everybody understood. Can anybody tell me about the town non-cooperation movement in the town? Yeah, Abhinav, tell me about the non-cooperation movement in town. No. Why did Gandhiji decide to withdraw the non-cooperation movement?
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me,
Yeah, now I hear you. Tell me.
ma'am? Hello.
Now the non-cooperation movement in town. I cannot hear you. Sumuk, you said? Aryan?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, tell me.
Ma'am, it was a movement, ma'am, where many lawyers, teachers, students, peasants refused to cooperate, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah.
Then, but except and they boycotted the elections, the courts, the schools, and the industry and the British cheap industries, like the British industry, which sold cheap cloth, cheap all of
Hmm.
those, and they began the production of khadi, the indigenous wool,
Hmm.
and the industries.
Hmm.
But however, it slowed down, ma'am, when first Justice Party of Madras participated in legislative elections. Second, the students had no other alternative institutions, so they joined their original. Third, the poor people had to buy the cheap cloth of the British industries.
So this was the reason for the end of the movement. Good. Okay. So that is it. All of you all understand our topic till now? Just give me a message. Yes. Hi, Sitsri. You came so late, dear. Okay, good, good, good. I got all of your messages. Okay, so we will continue next class. Okay, and we will talk about the non-cooperation movement in the village areas, in the hills, in the plantation areas. Okay, and then we will proceed further. Right. So, good night, all of you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night, Aryan. Good night, Dharia. Good
Good
night,
night.
Good
Abhinav.
night, ma'am. Thank you,
Right.
ma'am.
Good night, Sisri. Thank you so much of the. Okay, bye bye.